Hello everyone, welcome to From the Star Wars Home Video Library. This is another Q&A episode. This is Q&A episode number 8. We only have 3 questions to answer this time, so I'm thinking I could do this episode, just do it kind of quick, give you these answers here, keep this little sub-series rolling, and not have it suck up an entire afternoon or anything to get it recorded and edited here for you. So we're going to take a look at those 3 questions here. As always, if you want questions answered in the next Q&A episode of From the Star Wars Home Video Library, place your questions underneath this one. This will be a single episode wave for sure. Different shirt than last wave, so you can tell that it is a different recording session, and you'll be able to tell it's a different one next time because it'll be a different shirt last time. This time it's the weird kind of almost neon Mando shirt here, apparently with a collar that doesn't want to adjust right. So we're going to take a look here at the questions and just kind of power on through. Hopefully you will find them of interest here. I think they are some interesting questions. So we start with a question from Vintage VHS Treasures, who asks, this is probably a controversial question, but if you were to get one sealed item from your Star Wars home video collection graded, which would it be? So I've talked about my opinion on the grading thing before. Short version is that, you know, it is a free market kind of thing. More power to them if there's going to be a section within fandom and within the market that want to get things graded, that want to sell graded things, or that want to buy graded things. I don't really see the value in it myself, and I'm a little bit frustrated because what it seems to me has happened is it has taken this hobby and sort of created a little niche within it that isn't really about the love of the stuff most of the time so much as it's about the collectability and the will it be worth more later kind of thing as like a little side area, but that has driven up prices for everyone else who has been in this community for a while and simply collects. That is frustrating, but more power to them as long as it is free exchanges, not someone doing what we've seen before and driving up the prices artificially, then it's fine. I just will not be partaking in it myself. So I have sort of a 2-part answer here for this one. One is what I think I might actually get graded. The other is sort of snark. So if there was something I wanted to get graded specifically because it is sealed, first off, that's really kind of a very limiting condition within my collection. I don't keep most stuff sealed. Unless I've got extra copies of something, you're not going to find something usually sealed in my collection at all. So it took me a while to even consider what was sealed in my collection in the first place. One thing I might get graded, and this is currently in a protective sleeve, would be this. This is a sealed copy in pretty good condition, barring a corner thing here, down in this corner here. But it's a sealed copy of the original American Laserdisc release of A New Hope from 1982. So that might be something to get graded. The other thing that would stand out would maybe be something where something about the packaging was often discarded or something, so it's hard to find that specific variant sealed with something special about it. And that, in mind, is in a protective case for this as well. This is another sealed item. That is a VHS copy of A New Hope, which would have been issued in 1987 because the shrink wrap still has the first 10 years sticker on it. But I mean, the whole point of grading, or at least a big part of it, is to have some way to sort of demonstrate, look how awesome this is, the value should go up for this because it's graded, and therefore I should be able to sell it for more. But I wouldn't want to do that. When I have extra stuff in my collection for Star Wars home video stuff, typically what I do, sorry, I'm leaning forward because I feel like my forehead's getting neon here, or like super bright. What I usually do if I have extra stuff in my collection is I just put it aside, and then at some point I offer it to the community, either for sale or more often, just, hey, pay for shipping, I'll send you out my extras. Just do it kind of all in one big batch, as I'm planning to do sometime later this year still for a bunch of stuff that's now sitting in tubs in our living room that are all like duplicate stuff. So I almost feel like if I were to get something graded, I'd be doing it as like a proof of concept of how ridiculous it can be. And those are the kind that you might get graded because of their condition, because they're sealed, right? Because of when they're from. But it might be something where I could be like, you know what, let me get these graded, and let me put it on eBay. I'm not going to go through with the sale, which kind of make me an asshole, but let me put it on eBay and see how high they will go. Holy crap, that's insane. I wouldn't feel right doing a sale because I wouldn't want to take advantage of somebody, and I kind of feel like that's the case because most of these releases, you know, as soon as you open them, they're a dime a dozen. But at the same time, there's a part of me that's just like, let's see how high it goes. You know, the opposite of seeing how deep the rabbit hole goes is let's see how high the ridiculous graded prices can go for these items. Just kind of mess with it and just kind of see the ridiculousness and have some case examples of my own to be able to share about what I think of as kind of the ridiculousness of it. Otherwise, I'd probably grab something like, just to kind of prove the ridiculousness here, gosh, let's go with, I don't know, something like this. Or, maybe, here we go, yeah, right here. Oh yeah, baby. Just grab something that is ridiculous, shouldn't be of high value at all because they're incredibly common and not super sought after, but get it graded to see the impact that has on the proposed value when you put it on a place like eBay, again, to see how ridiculous it can affect prices. I feel like my grading would only be snarky grading if I were to try to do something like that. If I were grading from a collector's hold the value standpoint, I'd probably still go with those same sealed ones, but it's just not something that I think that I would do. All right, the next question comes from James Lawner, who asks, which was the most difficult Star Wars home video item to find? So I will say that it's a little bit, it depends on what you define as hard to find. There are some things out there that are incredibly rare, almost impossible to get your hands on at this point. But I have been very fortunate in how I've managed to come across some of these things. Because with the benefit of having the book, having the show on YouTube, having had all those years as a podcaster, all those years doing the Star Wars Timeline Gold, I've kind of become sort of a known quantity in this field of collecting, at least in some corners of it, such that when people know that I'm hunting for something and they run across it, sometimes they will tell me so I can go hunt whatever that is and pick up whatever it is. I also sometimes have people who are willing to donate stuff from their collection into mine because they realize I don't have it and they're wanting to part with those items, so they donate them to me to make them part of this library, to get them on the show and that sort of thing. And that kind of seems to be the case here when it comes to the ones that I want to mention that are incredibly hard to find, but which when it came to the hunt took me a long time to acquire them, but the actual acquisition was relatively easy, actually. So this is a format-based thing. So the first thing I would say is anything on Video 2000, V2000, coming out of places like the UK. Like here's Empire on Video 2000 from the UK. I've shown you these before. That's what a Video 2000 cassette looks like. Also known as a VCC cassette. If I can figure out how to put it back in there. There you go. Yeah, so these... there was a making of Star Wars for these. I'm still hunting down, for instance, one for the first Ewok film, because that one exists on Video 2000. But really anything Video 2000. Coming out of the UK, or really anywhere else. The UK is the primary place you would see them. Anything like that, incredibly difficult to find. But how do I get them in my collection? The generosity of that giant donation from Matt Fry that winds up putting them in my collection. A second type, and I guess I'll mention three. I was going to mention two, but I guess it's two based on format, and there's one that's not based on format. The other is Video 8 stuff. It's incredibly hard to find anything Star Wars Video 8 at this point. They were released in places like Japan and in the UK. So I have my Japanese trilogy set, there's A New Hope, my UK Return of the Jedi here. Again, Video 8 being those little cassettes like you would use in a Video 8 camcorder back in the day. No US versions of these. But again, incredibly difficult to find. I was hunting these for years, but how did I wind up eventually getting them? Jeremy Goss spotted a Japanese seller selling all three of these for this trilogy on eBay one day and sent me the links. I was freaking out and managed to get my hands on. That was that whole DHL episode where they basically sent it back to the warehouse and claimed it had been delivered, and it took a while to actually get them into my hands eventually. And then Return of the Jedi, this was a format that I learned about the most by watching a video by Matt from TechMoan about the Video 8 format years ago. And I had reached out basically saying, hey, you know, I'm doing a book on this stuff. If you wanted to part with that, because this is one of the example films he used in the video, I would certainly love to pick it up from you. And apparently also Matthew Hardesty emailed him also kind of on my behalf on the same thing. And then eventually he did get back to me and was like, yeah, we struck up a deal and I was able to get that. But that was not, you know, these were long hunts to get my hands on them. But then the actual process when it finally fell into place tended to happen very quick and very smoothly. Well, relatively smoothly, not so much with the whole DHL thing, but the actual finding them online came down to somebody spotting them and telling me, and me going to grab them because they knew I've been looking for them for a while. I would also include stuff like these in the mix, particularly for any ones that aren't the live-action films. The nice little anti-theft packaging for club stores of different releases. The ones that I have that are not for the live-action films, in fact, most of the ones I have for the live-action films, at least quite a few of them came through Matt Fry. This I wound up picking up later, but this is the one that's got that comic packaged in it that's incredibly rare. And this is one that came through eBay. So yeah, I would definitely say that those are some of the most difficult to find. Had I not been blessed by having, Jeremy catch the Video 8 stuff, having Matt respond from TechMoan about the other Video 8 item, to get that donation from Matt Fry into my collection, there would still be a lot of this stuff that I would be hunting down where maybe I hadn't even been able to find anything Star Wars on that format even, like with Video 8, like with Video 2000. But I've been very lucky in that regard and fortunate thanks to, the show and I guess just spending time within the community. I think those would be the ones I'd say are the toughest to find, because had it not been for the intervention of those other people, I wouldn't have them. And I would still be hunting them because I still have rarely, if ever, seen them in the wild at all. Then lastly, we have a question here from Golden Tin Type, and I actually really like this question because it made me sit down and try to come up with my own parameters. And I sort of recognize that I think in different ways depending on venue. The question here from Golden Tin Type is, where would you draw the line when it comes to fan-made and or vaguely related Star Wars documentaries for them to be or not to be included in the home video library? That is an excellent question. And what I find when I sat down and really started thinking about it was that now we're finally at sort of that breaking point with the show, right? That's going to force me to do some reevaluation. Because I have stuff in my collection, like this stack. You guys have seen this stuff behind me for ages, right? This stack right here, there's stuff in this stack in cases right now that I just haven't had a chance to look at yet that came through Matt Fry. Like there's a special effects thing with, I believe, Mark Hamill. There's a Hollywood's Aliens and Monsters. There's a George Lucas Creating an Empire biography episode. I have stuff like that I still need to sit down and just watch to get a good feel about before I can cover them on the show. But they're all stuff that took kind of the back burner because they are not specifically Star Wars in many cases. They're sort of Star Wars adjacent or Star Wars tied. Maybe Star Wars is an example product shown in them. Like, eventually when I get the physical copies in my hands, I'm going to show you guys In Search of Tomorrow, this great documentary that was released recently that I crowdfunded. Like I was one of the crowdfunders. I wasn't the person, doing the project or anything. I was just a backer. Just want to make sure that's clear. But it's a great documentary, and it focuses a lot on Star Wars at times because of how revolutionary it was for its time and what it kind of did for certain aspects of the sci-fi genre. When I get physical copies, I want to show you those. But it's not really about Star Wars. Star Wars is just sort of part of the coverage. So a lot of those things I haven't really focused too much on. I'm looking over this more on the other side of the room so my eyes keep going over here. I kind of put them in the same places like the Star Wars parodies like Thumb Wars. Right? They're off to the side. I've got them. At some point I should show them on the channel because we need more content for the show and there's not a bunch of new Star Wars releases coming. But I have less passion about those because they are not, primary stuff. So I think that what I would say is that my line to draw is different depending on where we're talking about me addressing those things. There's the stuff that goes in my collection that would just be on my shelves somewhere that I would simply own. But that gets narrowed even further to find stuff that I would find viable for the show. And right now, the show's focus is going to have to broaden because there just isn't more Star Wars physical releases coming very often. So it's going to have to broaden. We're going to have to talk about stuff that I had not considered talking about really much before to try to have more content here to show you. Because I know that some collectors, like myself, we include parodies and documentaries and stuff in our collections. As I said, it's a broader definition than the show itself. But I haven't really shown some of that stuff. So maybe we're kind of at that point. But then it narrows even further down when we talk about stuff that's actually viable for a saga on home video when I was writing the book, or if there ever is like a supplemental or whatever thing to like add to the book sometime long in the future. Because that is specifically about Star Wars releases. There need to be something official about it in some fashion for it to work for me. What I've usually gone by is the amount of focus for the channel, at least. Like, so for the channel, it was, is it Star Wars focused? Is Star Wars a significant part of it? Here you go. And was it even semi-professional? But fan documentaries is where I kind of went, like, when it came to parodies, I didn't really go towards fan-made parodies because there's tons of them out there. Documentary-wise, I leaned a little bit more into those and have shown those here on the channel. For my collection, anything kind of goes when it comes to those things. It's just that it may be something that sits in my collection kind of, you know, tucked away in a corner that doesn't really get dealt with, watched, focused on the show or anything like that. And then for a saga on home video, most of that stuff wasn't applicable anyway. Even if I had wanted it to be applicable, that would have been a lot of extra space and could not have been comprehensive, so I wasn't going to touch it. So it's definitely different tiers of it. I would say, again, if I had to define it kind of in a sentence each, my collection, is it Star Wars related at all? It counts. Now, that said, you go into other franchises, you're asking about documentaries and stuff like that, but take something that's another franchise. I don't collect Indiana Jones. There is a connection there. On the other hand, I do collect Willow, sort of. Like, I don't hardcore collect Willow, but I've got quite a few Willow items in the collection. I don't think I've even shown them on the show. Maybe I did. I honestly do not remember. It's been a very long time. I think maybe I did. But to actually have it in my collection doesn't take a whole lot. To feature it on the channel, in the past, I've been more discerning as the amount of official releases of Star Wars stuff has dwindled over time, or I've covered the bulk of it over time. That has opened up the scope of the show, which is the most flexible, I guess I would say, in terms of its parameters changing. So you'll see more of that probably here on the channel in the near future. But before now, it's really kind of had to have a heavier focus of and something specific about it that made me say, you know what, I want to show this, as opposed to just being a tenuous connection. And then if we narrow it down even more, for a saga on home video, that stuff in general, for the most part, unless it's a very specific case, doesn't count at all anyway. But if you're just talking about what goes in my Star Wars home video library, any of that stuff could be in here, as long as I've got the space for it. So with that, we will wrap up this Q&A episode. Again, if you have questions for the next Q&A, put them in the comments for this episode. Just bear in mind that I only grab them from the most recent Q&A, so if you're posting under number 7 or anything before that, I won't see those questions again because I just grabbed from 7 to do 8, the one you're watching right now. Post under 8 to get them into 9, and so on and so on and so on. If it's not Star Wars home video related, feel free to post questions in the most recent mini Q&A episode on the channel, not from the Star Wars home video library Q&A, but mini Q&A episode. I will carry those forward as well. I think right now there's only like 1 or 2 questions. It has not justified the actual creation of a new episode of one of those yet. But thank you for your questions, thank you for your interest, and may the Force be with the home video viewers.